call the meeting, bring the meeting Cornwall Board of Selectmen to order. Approval of the minutes, February 21st, is a motion to approve.
Will be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. See, additions to the agenda. I think we need to add payment of bills on there. So I'll make a motion to add bill payment on there.
Second.
I have some sort of specific questions about the COG meeting, so can we just add like COG update?
COG update, okay. Okay, so there's a bit of pen. Okay, so is there a second to add all those things?
I'll second.
We have bill payment and COG update. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, communications. Board got one from Trade Secrets. Trade Secrets is going to be a, Trade Secrets is a fundraiser for women's sports services. They're going to have one of their gardens on display here in Cornwall Village on May 14th. So there'll be heavier than average traffic on School Street, which is not a great average anyway, so just be prepared. Should be a good amount of people in the village to see a garden on behalf of Trade Secrets. And also I got a request from Dean Zaccardi to do an internship with me this summer for July and August. So he will be interning for the Board of Selectmen. That has happened before. It's interesting. So I said fine.
Like just shadowing you? Or?
Shadowing me, and I might give him some research projects to do and dig in and monitor things, but it's been a good experience.
You'll love or hate it?
What?
You'll either love it or hate it?
I love it or hate it, yeah. And no, it's been a good experience before, and it's nice to have young people around interested in government. So he said one day he may fill my shoes, so I said that sounds like a good deal.
I don't know.
All right, any other communications?
I just had one thing come in about the driver of our Goshen Cornwall van.
Right?
So I know we put the, notice out for, drivers.
Right.
So who are our drivers?
Well, I think the two current drivers are from Goshen, and so there are no Cornwall people driving it right now.
So who are the drivers from Goshen? Do you?
I know one's Dale
Horn.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the other one is.
Okay. Because
So-
this person was just concerned with, because it is handicap accessible in the driver,
Right.
and they were just wondering who the drivers are, and are they going to be capable of helping handicapped folks onto the van?
Absolutely.
I mean, I know they're not like, but just could they at least assist? Be
Well, I know because
strong enough to assist the
The
person onto the
requirements of the
van.
driver.
well, Bob Valentine, the first selectman, does an orientation, and there is a lift on there. So if
Right,
anybody
right,
needs a
right.
lift, they can get a lift. They can be
So that-
actually lifted, and I've had personal experience with someone in a wheelchair, and Dale was very good. She knew how to anchor the wheelchair and go through the various stages, and so it was a very smooth ride, and she knew exactly what to do. So
Okay. So when we test drove it around the block, Mike DeGrenia drove us around.
yes,
So is he? So he's not a
He's-
driver. He
he's
just
not
happened to be.
he's not a driver anymore.
He just happened to be the person that drove us around that day.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other communication?
Gordon, I submitted an email today before 4 o'clock. Has that been received?
I don't know. I didn't get back from Hartford to 5:30, so I don't know
Haven't
about it.
received as of 4.
4 o'clock.
Richard, you didn't get it? I sent it to all three
That's right.
selectmen.
3:53.
I got it late today. I
Yeah.
did get an email late today. That, but you're here to comment on it if.
Well, the next thing is public comment, so if you want to bring us up to date, I haven't read it yet, but if any, now's public comments.
Would you guys
Welcome to
like
the large
this?
amount of public people here.
Well, it wasn't, I have another issue that I would like to address, so I'll hand you off that, and come back to that in a minute. The issue of the assistant town clerk. I had understood that you had a candidate who's been acting as an assistant in Kent, and she applied for the job. She rents a house in Sharon, but when the notice came out in the Chronicle advertising the job, it said the person must be a Cornwall elector. And I wondered why that has suddenly become a qualification. Here we have someone who's been trained and on Kent's nickel that we could take advantage of. And I know you put $2,500 in the budget for training this new person, and with such a shortage of funds, this would be an opportunity to get someone who might need training, but certainly we could save some of that $2,500. I mean, tax collector's assistant, I believe right now is from Torrington, and we've used assistants as town clerk who've come from Canaan on occasion. I just wondered why this sudden,
The sudden
Has to
shift
be
is
an
because
elector.
it's up to Vera to decide who's the assistant town clerk,
yeah,
and she would like to have somebody who could potentially replace her in town.
Yeah.
So that is one of the qualifications being asked for now, that she would have somebody that potentially could become town clerk one day, which would have to be somebody that's a Cornwall elector. So that's
Yes.
the change. And that's up to Vera to decide who is her assistant, and that, to me, is a pretty rational reason, so that's why things have changed. There are other people that are designated as assistant town clerk that can run the office in a pinch, but for this
But
particular,
seemed, at this time, when we're under so much budget pressure, that this might not be the ideal time to make that additional requirement for the job. I just wanted to bring it up and for your consideration. The other point was that I was very disturbed to hear that you have not given here the additional $1,000 that they asked for in support of, as we've often pointed out, keeping the elderly, of which I am one, in our homes and supporting us. And they reported that they had only 300 rides anticipated last year, and Cornwall used over 415. So it seems to me that even if we're not paying for this year, we sort of almost owe them for last year for overusing. And I would hope that the board would reconsider and put back the $1,000 that they have asked for, because I think we've used it and they've been a great support. And they've also pointed out that they can put a CNA on the bus when someone needs it and really, really support people in time of need. So I hope the board will consider that. And then the note that I sent today about the proposed purchase of the Eversource property, I would just note, I hope you will see that there is a sentence in there that says, I personally support the final plan put forward for the NRD project for the Bend. And I would like that to be made clear to the people who are circulating vicious and untrue statements about my position on this. So I would like them to know that that is what it says in the letter. And my concern is only as a taxpayer that we don't wind up having to pay significant sums for remediation of a property that Eversource is certainly in a position to give us much clearer information and definition than they have provided thus far. Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other public comments? Going once.
If I want to say something about the Bend project, is now to say or after Mike speaks?
We do have public comment now, and we have it at the end of the meeting. You're welcome. You can speak both. It's a public meeting, and the floor, just for showing up, you get to have a couple minutes of comments if you wish to speak.
Okay, I have heard that there's an argument that there is not public support for the project at the Bend, which led me to start a petition to find out if there is public support for the project. And in 2 days, I have collected 44 signatures of Cornwall residents who are in support of the project at the Bend. Also, the West Cornwall Library, which is immediately adjacent to the project, has voted unanimously as a board to support the project and is going to partner with HVA in anything that goes on in that area. So I just did want to make it clear that I do have those 44 signatures of people who are in support of the Bend project.
Fine, thank you. And we will be talking more about this very shortly under item 2. So, yeah, the Ben project is alive and well. It's, I think, gone through 4 or 5 committee approvals, and we're at this point waiting to finalize some negotiations with Eversource, and then it will be ready for a town meeting. All the other local approvals have been met, and we're just waiting to work out some details on that. So, next on our agenda is budget with John. Next is the budget update with John Laporta. Welcome, John. We had a good meeting with the Board of Finance last week, the week before, tomorrow night after that. So this is definitely a challenging budget year. Just got back from 7 hours in Hartford, and that's definitely, nothing's changed in there as far as some of the issues financially facing municipalities. Let's see, on the budget update, just to clarify, I think, John, we had a good meeting with the Board of Finance last week, so there are some things that will also, speak. So John's here to give us some insight from the board's reaction to the selectmen's budget so far.
Thank you, Gordon. So I'm the chairman of the Board of Finance. Thank you for letting me have a couple minutes just to give a very brief update. Possibly the most challenging budget season we've had in living memory, and that's not an exaggeration, believe it or not. The selectmen presented their portion of the budget over the last few weeks. We had a meeting last week with them. We meet Wednesday nights, and we're pretty much every Wednesday night. If you want to come to this room, 7:30 tomorrow, and the following Wednesdays, we'll be here discussing budget. Selectmen's budget was tight, thankfully, but very reasonable, and there was very little that we saw that needed to be adjusted or talked about. Big items this year are several. I would say the very largest is the state, is on the revenue side. The state is deciding this is the year that they are going to make some very, very significant changes for municipalities. And Gordon, as our first selectman, has been active in Hartford looking into these. For example, requiring the towns to pay a certain percentage of the teacher retirement funds, which the state has been funding for a number of years now, and all at once they're suddenly handing that, talking about handing that to municipalities. That would be a big item. They've gradually reduced other forms of aid that they've given us for education, for roads, different grants. These things are dissolving. So we see quite a significant shortfall in revenues. We'll be grappling with that a little later in our budget season. We have the school budget. The Board of Education budget is being presented tomorrow night, so that's here at 7:30 tomorrow. We'll see how that unfolds. So in essence, it's a challenging year, and please come, participate, stay tuned.
So
Thank you.
Just to clarify on the charitable organizations,
Mhm.
we did put in their full requests, and our thought at this point is we will not fund them less than we did last year, but at this point, for discussion purposes anyway, we have put in their full request, but this board has not voted to cut any requests at this point, and I think the Board of Finance had some thoughts on charitable organizations, gear, library, child center, as a
I'd be happy to speak a little bit to that. It's something we did discuss at our meeting last week. There's approximately close to 30 different organizations that apply to the town for funding. The principal ones are the library and the child center. Our principal meaning the most amount of money goes to them. I don't think the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance, we value these organizations in general, and I don't mean to in any way belittle their value with what I'm about to say. But in terms of a $6.7 million budget, when we're talking about hundreds or $1,000 for one particular group, in terms of a mill rate or taxes, that virtually doesn't show up in that discussion. It's not a significant percentage. So our Board of Finance realized that the Board of Selectmen have a much better handle on these organizations, what their needs are. Some of them are confidential, we can't really know, and so we have sort of an understanding, if you will. It's approximately 2% of what our town budget is these organizations. And it seems to be that through year after year. So we realize that seems to be a comfortable number for us as a Board of Finance. The Board of Selectmen continually present us with that percentage roughly. So we're letting them handle how they'd like to do, whether it's a $1,000 increase, $1,500 increase. If we have, an 8-person board, 3-person board, start debating every single small group and what they get, you end up having too many personalities involved. So our feeling was 2% seems very realistic. I think as our board, we're quite pleased with how the selectmen handle that. And it does not mean that if there's something that's significant that we won't address it. We certainly will. But in general, that's how we're leaving it. Let the Board of Selectmen decide how they'd like to proportion that percentage.
Okay, thank you, John.
You're welcome.
So I have a question.
Yep,
So can
sure.
you explain to me, the Board of Selectmen also decided that we would not take increases in our salaries to offset those organizations'
Mhm.
increases?
Mhm.
And do you reverse that?
Yes,
So can
thank you.
well,
Thank you very
your-
much.
Sorry, your board.
Yep, thank you very
reversed that.
much.
So can you explain to me
Absolutely.
what the thinking was there?
The Board of Selectmen unanimously decided at a previous meeting that they would forego their salary increase of 3%, which is what every other town employee receives. That passed. It came before our board as part of their presentation, and we felt as a board, and I personally was the one who brought this up, we felt that this was not the proper way for a municipality to save on expenses. Our people work very hard in general. These are solid workers, all of them. Whether or not a particular person you agree with a certain style, their job performance, any of that, that's not for us to decide. We felt as a board that it was not appropriate for the town to try to save money by not having people have their cost of living allowance. It also had to do a little bit with the fact, as I mentioned earlier, the actual percentage in terms of a mill rate or tax increase or decrease is negligible in a $6.7 million budget. It's not necessarily negligible for a particular person and their salary. We just felt that wasn't the proper way for us to go forward as a municipality to expect people to not have a cost of living increase. So that's why we did that.
Okay.
One quick administrative question. Is there some way for you to include the most current iteration of the budget with your minutes online?
Probably not.
Just because of volume?
And just in general, this actually is their meeting, and there's a big agenda, so I'm happy to answer questions, but those can come before our board. But in general, you have to realize that the budget season is over a period of time. And we will hear, for example, tomorrow night the Board of Ed does a presentation to us. They will present their budget, it's public, you can all come and hear it. Our board will not actually be commenting on that tomorrow. We won't actually even be discussing it. Tomorrow night they do a presentation. We're going to hear that presentation, make sure we clearly understand what they're saying. That's that portion. Budgeting is a complex thing. There's very significant changes this year, and to try to give an update as we're going simply isn't realistic. We have to get the big pieces in place. Everything we're doing now is really expense. It's expense budget. We haven't even really formally talked about revenues yet. That's after this. So to try to give a meaningful update meeting by meeting, minute by minute, with the minutes, probably just not realistic.
Thank you.
So.
Okay. Very good. All right, so next we have the band with Mike Drzymski of Housatonic Valley Association. Welcome, Mike.
Evening, everybody.
Yeah.
So Gordon, you did a really good job of summing up where we are right now. All of our approvals are in place. Design is ready to go. The only things I would add to that is we've heard back from Cultural and Historic Preservation, and they signed off on it with some minor changes to the plans, just adding some of the archaeological features that are on the site to the plans.
That's a state.
That's the state's, right, historic preservation. And we heard that there's a few folks in town that are concerned about potential legacy environmental contamination. So we did have Tom Stromolo, who's in the room, conduct an environmental assessment, and I think he's happy to talk about that with you. And you guys have a copy of the report. Tom, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what you did.
Yeah, I thought, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So, first report I gave Mike sort of went viral before we had a chance to kind of like fully wrestle with it. And I apologize for the fact that we caused a little bit of misunderstanding in the greater community. It was actually good that I got a lot of feedback from everybody, including Gordon, who I hadn't even had a chance to talk to before I put the first bit together. And since then, had time to spend with more people at CLMP/Eversource. And poke around a little further. I didn't change my original sort of inclination. I thought that, and what the report says is that I think knowing that there was fairly intensive industrial activity there through 1904, 1905 for sure, would want whatever happens on that site, the contractors, site workers, and everybody else to be vigilant and use best practices as they approach the property. I think that's the principal thing. The reason I put it that way is that I think the second avenue at this point is to dig deeper to find out whether there are, in fact, residual contaminants over there, which opens a major can of worms. I think if you had different partners in this, I'd be more concerned. But I've worked with Eversource before, and I know that they're on board with owning their environmental issues and these transfers. I should also say, my first go at this, I didn't really understand there was actually a transfer involved. I was actually looking at the site plan that they asked me to take a look at and make sure that made sense for the site from an environmental perspective. And I think being concerned about inheriting some, significant mitigation expense is what we're all worried about. And
it's 8 o'clock.
Thank you.
No worries. And I think, as I said in my letter to Mike, I would think with an 800-pound gorilla on the team, being Eversource, with the means and actually in-house environmental capabilities, and I think they're probably used to the kind of negotiations I hope you're having right now, which is that they know what the history of the site is as well as the rest of us, and they've indicated to me at least that they're open to some sort of indemnification, or certainly maybe hold the property through the process so that it's still under their control in case anything comes up, and then make a transfer at a later date. But some sort of set of negotiations that would keep everybody happy and on the same page. I didn't talk a lot about my qualifications, and I'm sort of a specialist at this high-level environmental analysis, but I work mostly with nonprofits that don't have a lot of money, and I try to sort of steer my clients down a path of reasonable, you know, sort of commitment and expense, and certainly do whatever I can to kind of protect them from unforeseen and consequences. So, I've spent a lot of my career, I'm more of an energy engineer, and spent a lot of time doing building inspections, but I've spent a lot of time in the last 25 years working along Route 44 from Hartford to the state line, and I've done a fair amount of work along the river with customers that can't hire extremely pricey environmental people who are awesome in every way, but I think my niche has been try to negotiate these trails in sort of a financially reasonable path to environmental righteousness. Happy to answer questions too. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Appreciate your report. Does the board have?
The other thing I would add is that our project engineer, Kleinschmidt, has reviewed Tom's report and signed off on it.
They like it?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Does the board have any questions for Mike or Tom?
Mike, who did you say signed off on it?
Our project engineer, which is Kleinschmidt,
Is he an environmental engineer
they have they're a multinational engineering
or
firm.
is
so
he an
they're
environmental
pretty-
scientist
Oh,
on
yeah.
staff that signed off on?
Yep, and I can share that with whoever's interested.
I think Eversource told me, I think Jamie told me that they plan to have their environmental professionals on site while the work's being done, or as part of their sort of diligence, or have them available as well, which would be another way to not have to bring in another firm to do something.
Can we talk about this now, or does it have to wait?
I'm gonna have the board ask questions first, and then we'll have the public get their.
I thought one of the comments, I'm not sure whose, whether it was in Tom's report or whether it was some comment by Kleinschmidt, that said it's environmentally and aesthetically improves the area. And while minimizing, and the important part was that while minimizing the disturbance. And those are really to me, the three key things about the whole project. Disturbing as little as possible and improving the environmental and aesthetic area. So, I'm not sure whose comment that said that. I'm not sure which letter I was reading.
No, but they did recognize the potential that there could be some contamination, and so the disturbance should be minimized, and environmental observations taken during the excavation.
Yeah, well, I think that would be
As long as that's
fairly obvious that
gonna
that should
happen
be done through the
standard.
whole project, I would think, that they would be. I mean, I think you, in your report, or in the study, it indicates, it's not a question, it's just, it lists all the potential things that have taken place there, it lists everything that we sort of know, what we sort of know, I mean, you can't list what we don't know, because we don't know it, if there is any, but, I mean, the options are you do nothing.
Does it, well, the project could happen no matter what, but is the real problem if we were to purchase the property as opposed to lease it?
So the property has to have, I believe from our discussion with HVA, eventually they would like the town to be responsible, hold the lease or own the property. The
Right.
HVA does not want
But
to
we don't
lease it.
necessarily need to own it, we could still
Correct.
lease it, but still have the project,
Correct, correct. Yes.
depending on what the lease is.
And that's the last piece of the
Right.
puzzle, is
Right.
sitting down, we
We
have
don't
to
really
say,
have yet,
what?
which we don't have yet.
Right, our last thing to work on before it's full and ready to go to town
And
meeting
then it
is,
goes to a town meeting.
right, is for us to decide whether we should lease or buy, and then whether we can get a agreement with Eversource to lease or buy. We certainly have those
And to
options.
define, to define the lease or purchase agreement in such a way that if, while this is taking place, something is found or determined, you know, sort of what happens and how does that, I mean, that's sort of
Right,
what,
it all comes back up to negotiation. Didn't we get something from them?
well, that may be.
Yes, we have something we'll discuss, we'll review it.
13.
That's we're discussing later, okay.
Right.
I would assume.
Yeah, so we have a potential lease and we have appraisals, we have
Yeah,
a bunch of information we
Okay.
can discuss. But certainly a lease is an option. So, yeah, and certainly also I've talked to town attorney, and having the town protected is one of our priorities too. We're not just doing this just for the sake of doing it. We also want to make sure the town is not held responsible for something that's existing on the site, although the chances of that are fairly remote. We want to make sure the town, if there is something there, the town is protected from liability for that. Okay, so any questions from the audience? Comments? More comments? Yes?
Yeah, I think, in my interpretation, if we do nothing, if nothing is done, right now, so if there is something wrong with this site and nothing is done, nothing is improved, there's no drainage fixed, there's no culverts fixed, there's nothing done, then you are doing the thing, it seems to me, that people want to try to avoid, which is contaminating the river. Is that the issue we have here? That's the thing is that we're afraid that we're gonna go into a site and we could possibly then have some contamination. But it's my understanding that if there is something wrong with that site and you do nothing, you're contaminating the river.
Correct. I think if the status quo remains, we now have runoff going right down the middle of the parking lot, washing the river, which is not a great scenario, in addition to the public benefits of a good parking lot, which West Cornwall needs more parking, a public restroom, a safe boat access, something that's manageable, passive recreation opportunities, which West Cornwall could use also. There is the added benefit of having the site remediated in a way that meets current environmental standards and has drainage dealt with before it goes into the river. So I think there's 5 benefits that I can think of moving forward, which is why we're going ahead. Yes?
So I understand that there's been some dumping down there, because it's an independent property?
I'm not really aware of what a real dumping.
Like,
brush.
someone said that there was a big,
Not
not
just brush.
No, but there was, what would you,
There's like asphalt. There's asphalt dumping, there's people using it as a bathroom even though there's no bathroom there. It's quite an interesting spot right now.
Yeah, there's a few bits and pieces, but there's not huge piles of
The-
stuff that
It's,
can't be
but it's not
fixed.
like it's not,
it's inviting more of that kind of thing.
Right.
Right, it's not,
Right.
it's not, up to snuff.
right,
dumping begets dumping.
right.
Right. It could be a lot better, which, it's an exciting possibility.
Yes.
And thank everybody for their patience, and this has been a long process trying to get everything lined up and hear everybody's comments and try to make the project better in the process. Yes, Jim?
And, I've read this transaction screen that's dated December 2nd, I believe. I don't know if this is the latest or if it's been amended since then.
Yeah, I think that's.
And this
Should
may
be
be
a-
the viral one.
We have one February 9th.
February 9th is the
Okay.
most recent.
I'm in the middle of a huge remediation project on a piece of property I bought, so I'm well versed with DEP and their idiosyncrasies. Transaction screen is just a rudimentary, basic, quick oversight of the property. Should have been filled out probably by the previous property or the current property owner, to the best of their knowledge. I don't know if this has changed, but I'm just looking at all the checks off. Most of them are just from your tertiary observation of walking the property.
Yeah.
And there are a few things that you have checked off as the owner occupant that I'm assuming you spoke to someone at Eversource,
Yeah.
someone with historical knowledge of the property.
They actually took a copy, filled it out with the second one.
Okay, but someone there with historical knowledge of the property.
Well, as much as they have, yeah.
Okay, because it's kind of common knowledge that it was an industrial site at the turn of the century, and this doesn't mention that whatsoever. The
Yeah.
other one does, and I apologize.
It doesn't have
But the transaction screen is basic. It's just a two-page questionnaire. It's
Right.
nothing.
It's in there.
Okay. And then you have what you're calling a phase one environmental assessment. That's,
Yeah.
again, a page and a half. This isn't a phase one report. This is just a quick kind of oversight. If nobody knows, that's a phase one report. That phase one report cost me $14,000, and it took a month and a half to do. That's a phase one report. This isn't a phase one report. It's just a brief overview of your opinions of the site. There's no testing, no real historical documentation or studies of the area. No questions asked of the property owners in the area. So don't rely on that. I don't know if the town has talked to the lawyer, your town lawyer, about the possibility of purchasing this property.
Yeah, as I said, we've talked to him, we have advice on how to protect the town from any liability of previous.
I bought a piece of property in Sharon that was remediated in 1990 to the state's satisfaction. I bought it in 2014. Because of the Transfer Compliance Act, I had to have a phase one done. Now, this property was cleaned in 1990 according to the state and to the DEP, or the DP at the time. I bought it in 2014, had to conduct phase one. I've, to this point, spent $75,000 just in phase 1, 2, and 3 testing. And only because I had a smart lawyer that demanded that I put in the contract that the previous owner was responsible for remediation, is he responsible for what's probably going to be about $250,000 in remediation. This is a clean piece of property. It is infinitesimally over the state allowable limits of whether gasoline from a gas station in 1950, and it's going to cost them $250,000. You need to go into this with way more than what's been studied. A complete phase one study, hopefully if you negotiate smart enough on CLNP's dime, and this I guarantee you is going to turn into a phase two. My phase two cost me $17,000 for a phase two. I'm in phase three, then I'm at $29,000 right now. Your lawyer in your negotiations needs to make sure that CLNP is responsible for phase one, phase two, and any remediation that's going to be necessary. If this is going to be a recreational spot that kids are going to be running around in their bare feet, and it was a known foundry, probably a nickel plating company, a manufacturing plant in the turn of the century, it's going to be contaminated. Everybody knows it's contaminated. And don't get me wrong, I think it's a great project. It's a stupid piece of property that kids go down there and drink and raise hell. It'd be great if the town took it over. I'm all for that. But you guys need to be careful and protect yourself, because if you get the DEP on your tail, state DEP makes Torrent Canary Health look like puppy dogs. Those guys are irrational. You can't question them, you can't challenge them. They're gonna tell you what to do, and if you don't do it, they're gonna hammer you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Any other comments from the public? Yes.
I have some written comments I'm going to submit on this. I represent Keel and our membership. What's your name? Audrey Cole. I don't want to get off base on this, but we fully support this project. It's never been the issue. I think, as you know, and I've said numerous times, it's got to do with the purchase of the property and the circumstances of that purchase. And we just want to make sure the town's protected. I've spoken to the head of the Brownfields program in Hartford at DEEP. Municipalities have an awful lot of support on these projects, different from private property owners. And they have wonderful resources, and if the town of Cornwall does this right, it's a really good roadmap for other contaminated properties like the Neowell property, on the Kent-Cornwall line, because these properties have to be brought back and put in productive use. We have no one in our membership who is against this proposal at all that's on the books. Our issue is that if the town takes over from currently a responsible, deep-pocketed party, which is Eversource, and that's our concern. Our position is that a phase one has not been done. I don't know how many you've completed, and you didn't have your liability insurance in the report. You didn't have a list of phase one reports that you have done, so I could call up those companies and say, were you satisfied with his work and so forth? I think any phase one would, I agree with this gentleman, go to a phase two. So I'm just gonna submit some written comments on this, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, a real phase one has to be done, a full and complete phase one. Hopefully, in CLP's done.
Okay, any other public comments? All right, next we go from,
Can I ask?
Yes.
I have one more question for Michael, and that is, where do you, for the project to move forward in your mind, you have the study done by Tom, and what do you see as the next step?
Well, I would just agree with what I think everybody has said is, it's critical that the town make sure that they are protecting themselves from any future liability. As far as where we're at now, I mean, I would defer to our project engineer. They, the ones we've been consulting on this for the last decade, and they seem to think we're in good shape to move forward.
so.
And that's this Kleinschmidt.
That's Kleinschmidt, yeah.
But we also have to make sure it's a safe piece of land for kids to run around on. Just because somebody says, yeah, I think it's probably okay, doesn't, I mean, you need to do testing. If that piece of land never had an industrial site on it, and you're gonna turn it into a park, I would think you'd wanna do testing on it regardless. You're gonna have kids running around with bare feet jumping in and out of the lake, or out of the river.
But you're ready to go, Mike, if when the town gets ready. So your end is essentially done.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we have bridges, Flat Rock Road, Gravel Bank Bridge. Again, we met with our, with the Board of Finance.
Can I do one more thing? I'm sorry. I ran this, report past the LEP, that's a licensed environmental professional that I'm familiar with. Just to kind of get his opinion on it. He just wrote a letter to me. I just figured I'd send it out to you guys if you want to read it. Take it for what it's worth. But he's a licensed LEP. He's doing all my work, and I trust his opinion.
All right, thank
If
you.
anyone there wants to copy this.
Okay. Next, we have bridges, Flat Rock Road, Gravel Bank Bridge. We did meet, or I met with the Board of Finance to talk about our town meeting, our improvement program, which we hope to take to town meeting next month. The Board of Finance, I think, was supportive of this. They did want to have an approval of the plans of the gravel bank bridge replacement before that project is done, so we redid the resolution in order to accommodate those wishes.
I'm sorry, I missed something there. Who
Okay.
wants the,
So the Board of Finance requested, the only thing that when they went and looked at the $1.5 million project, it was roughly $500,000 set aside for the gravel bank bridge. They've,
Is that in the capital budget? Where was the
No.
$500,000 set aside?
the $500,000 set aside in Dave Batista's report. This $1.5 million is based on his report. For the gravel bank bridge replacement, he had $500,000 set aside for that part of the $1.5 million project. Members of the Board of Finance felt that was a lot of money, and it's not much more than the amount that we have set aside for Flat Rocks, but we don't even have any design yet on the gravel bank, and they're wondering, because it's not on a town road, can we do something less expensive in that particular location? Which I deferred and said, we're ready to go on the gravel bank, I mean, we're ready to go on Flat Rocks. We don't want to miss another year on that, and when we get to that point with the gravel bank, we'll be sure to come back, and, or even before we get to that point, we can come back and review plans or our current thinking or engineers' thinking on what's the most appropriate practical solution to getting into the gravel bank. So that's one change since we met 2 weeks ago.
that they want to reword?
They want to revisit what we're doing, because one member thought we should put a temporary Bailey Bridge in there. There's also talk of different access or whatever. Can we just basically use the existing footings that are there, or existing abutments, and just replace the deck. There's,
But all
some
those things
other.
were going to be reviewed before we build whatever we're going to build
Right.
by some engineer that we
Right.
haven't gotten to yet, I think. I mean, so
Well,
you're saying that we've done that Roger's looked into it in the interim?
No, we haven't, we're not even there yet. The only
Yeah,
thing that
okay.
we've done in the interim is getting a recommendation to the from the Board of Finance that we go back to them before we go out to bid, so they can weigh in with ideas or questions as far as what a appropriate practical design is for that location. John, do you want to
Yeah,
clarify?
just to clarify exactly what happens, when the Board of Finance approves the borrowing of the $1.5 million, in essence, we relinquish any kind of oversight, and that simply goes to the Board of Selectmen to then do whatever bridge order they wish to do, to spend the money to go ahead and actually do the projects in any order they want. And because there was concern about that one particular bridge, of the gravel bank bridge, and the cost involved, and if there's simpler, easier, we just wanted to make sure that the Board of Selectmen would come back to the Board of Finance for that one bridge before it simply went ahead to
With a
any kind
full
of project.
explanation of what we're doing.
Clearly, so there has to be another approval just for that bridge, because otherwise it's completely, we simply say the 1.5 million is appropriated, go ahead and borrow, and the ball gets passed. So we just wanted a little bit more oversight on that one expense. So that's what this new wording will be, and so we postpone that motion until tomorrow night, at which point we'll probably...
Your new wording for your...
The wording for the proposal for the borrowing of the $1.5 million will now require that the Board of Selectmen, it's not in the minutes, in the agenda.
It's this wording that we're talking about.
Yes,
Don't forget
it's the
to-
current
No,
wording.
there's an extra sentence at the end.
But
That's
in
not
essence,
this.
that's what it means, it's for that one bridge.
Right,
Simply
this
has
is,
to come back
it's
for
part
approval.
it's part of this discussion here.
We have a little bit of history on that bridge because of when AT&T was gonna put the cell tower up, based on the size and weight of the vehicles that will be passing over it.
That
Which may
that
be
was
diff-
also came to our
Which may be
meeting.
different now because
Exactly.
those larger vehicles may not necessarily be going over it. but
Exactly, and
I'm
it's a
sure they
private,
Right,
sort of
right.
kept that in
Towns only.
mind when they're figuring that number out.
that's one of the things we wondered about. So we just thought we needed to have a little bit more discussion
It's
about it before. it was
really
appointed.
wide, wider than you would think, I think was what the issue was at the time, why it's so expensive.
Yeah.
So the relevant sentences in the last sentence of section 1, which says the Board of Selectmen shall prioritize projects and allocate the appropriations necessary to implement the bridge program within the scope of this appropriation, provided the improvements to the gravel pit drive over Millbrook Bridge shall be referred to by the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance for prior approval. So,
All it really is the Board of Finance maintaining a bit of control over that particular bridge. The Board of Finance.
Yeah, it's an oversight, just to make sure that
Yeah.
that we're all doing due diligence of what we really need there, the value of the property, what other options are there,
Thank you.
et cetera.
right.
Yeah.
So formally, we have to, and again, we have to go through a formal process to borrow this money. This was all spelled out by bond counsel, and the reason we have to have bond counsel is because we've already borrowed money to do the school project. Our bonding for, on a municipal level is quite low, but whenever we borrow an additional amount, we have to get his approval to make sure that we do it correctly to represent the issue, the interests of the people that already were indebted to. So he came up with these resolutions, which are very thorough. And so what we need to do before we can go to a town meeting is pass a resolution. So let's see, I'll introduce the following resolution. Resolve that the resolution entitled the resolution appropriating $1.5 million for the Town of Cornwall Bridge Improvement Program 2017 and authorizing the issue of up to $1.5 million of bonds for the town to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, making of temporary borrowings, therefore is hereby approved and recommended for adoption by the town. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the entitled resolution and incorporate its full text into the minutes of the meeting? In other words, we don't have to read through the several pages of
Would
legal.
you like me to make a motion that?
Yes, I'd like you to make that motion, which Joyce can keep track of.
I'd like to I'll make a motion that we don't read the entire content of the motion for the town meeting.
A second.
Discussions, any discussion? Okay, those in favor?
A copy of which is available
Available.
to the public.
Rich doesn't have enough film to film it if we did read it all.
Oh,
I do. He does, good for you. Okay, those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes. Is there a motion and a second that the resolution be adopted?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
I'll move it. Any discussion on the main motion?
I have a question.
Yes.
So how much do we have in capital for bridges?
Right now, we have, in the current year, in the 5-year plan, we just put in about $100,000 as a placemaker for this. I think if we borrow this, there's a couple different scenarios as far as what the annual amounts will be, and that will be up to John Green and I think myself to decide which way we go, and I'll bring that information back to this board. But some of the considerations are that the existing debt may expire before this one. This is probably a 10-year borrowing, and the existing school bond, I think, expires in 7 years or less. So we may backload it, we may have even payments, but that's one thing that's up for discussion. But it will be more than $150,000 on average a year because of the interest payments.
So is your question, Heidi, $100,000 that's in capital, are we going to use that to pay this, or are we going to be
Well,
using
just-
it for other purposes?
Yeah, how much is in there? What are we gonna do with it? Is it gonna be
We have,
part of this, or
there's
we
hardly any-
plan on?
there's very little unspent money in the current capital budget for bridges. It's mostly was spent down on the end of Valley Road. We have a little bit left for some engineering.
So there's no already savings
No.
ready to be used?
And that's the primary reason we had to borrow, was in view of everything else that's going on this year, to raise the money to get the Flat Rocks one underway. We needed to do something that wouldn't totally deplete the town's resources. We actually do have more than enough money in reserves to build a bridge, but it would have put a pretty serious dent in it. And with everything else going on, it was felt like, especially for bridges, because they're long-term projects, they're probably the best thing to borrow for.
And ultimately, the borrowing, the repayment of the borrowing, the repayment of the bonds or bank loan, depending on, I think we're going for a bank loan, ends up on a different line in the budget, is that correct? In terms of-
I believe it does. That would be more Barbara's world.
And
How it
John's.
shows up, I think it'll be very clear where that's going. It would be obvious to everyone if they want to look at it, what we're spending for that borrowing. But I wanted to just comment one thing, that even if there's 100,000, the 1.5 million that we're proposing to borrow only covers half of the bridges that are in town. And that's, our next batch would be due in about 10 years. And 10 years from now, we'll have to be redoing the rest of the bridges. But once this money's appropriated, the selectmen have a great deal of flexibility of how it's spent and which bridges they want to do when. If there happens to be a little leftover money, if you will, in that line, it can simply be applied to the next batch of bridges. So it isn't as if, we only have so many bridges to do, and what if we have leftover money, and how is it? It'll just go to the next batch. There's another $1.4 million worth of bridges to do after this batch, so.
But I think it's important too that actually this is half the money the report talked about, but actually there's only, this touches 13 bridges, there'll be 4 left after that for the next round, and hopefully we can have some practical suggestions to bring down that money, to bring down that amount. Originally, we were talking about a $6 million thing, we're down to $3 million. So hopefully we can further refine our thinking and come up with some practical suggestions on that last batch of things. And if the town so chooses or whatever, if we can, if we don't spend all the 1.5, we also have the option of paying it off early if we want to do that. If
Yes.
things,
There is no penalty for prepayment, so if we end up under budget, we can simply pay off the loan whenever we choose.
Or continue on.
Or continue on to the next phase. Again, there's a great deal of flexibility that the town has once the money's borrowed.
And then if you could just indulge me in my lack of knowledge of bonds and loans. So we keep saying loan and borrow, but the resolution talks about bonding.
Thank you, that was actually brought up at
So
our
I'm
meeting.
losing.
Right.
The question was asked, and I don't know the exact difference, but it was made clear at the meeting that when a municipality borrows money, it's referred to as a bond,
no
even
matter
if it's a
what.
bank loan.
Even if it's a loan.
And so we're talking about more like a commercial loan sort of feel, that actually the cost to the town for that borrowing of the loan, if you will, is about $35,000 is what it costs the town just to go through the borrowing process. Whereas for the loan, if it were an actual bond, it would cost us closer to $70,000 or $75,000. So that's one of the reasons that John Green and Barbara have pursued the loan, because it's cheaper for us to do.
But no matter what, it's still
But no
called a
matter,
bond.
it's called a bond because it's municipal borrowing,
Okay.
but there are those two different, and now that I'm on record, probably I got that wrong. That's what was stated at the meeting, because it was specifically asked and stated.
you can
Great.
see in the middle of this, there is an explanation that says bonds, including,
The part that we didn't
Loans.
read.
right,
Thank you.
The 9 pages of.
the 9 pages of things, yeah.
Thank you for summarizing that.
For the bond council, for the bond council to protect the bondholders, the previous bondholders.
Right.
That's what he's worth all the money for, and why it's 10 pages long of wording that's what he does.
Great, so, any more discussion? Have we voted on this?
No.
Okay, so all those in favor? Aye. So, then, the next thing, as we've got a resolution going, the Board of Finance hopefully will be satisfied with this, and I would like to set up a April 7th town meeting to vote on this. This would also meet our understanding our next, so let's see, I would then make a motion to go to town meeting on April 7th, which is, I believe, Friday night, 7:30, can be here at the town hall. To do this would be upon the,
The town meeting,
town meeting would be here, or we can do it at the school.
I've set up at the school.
Okay, let's
We
do
can
it at
either.
school.
Okay.
Yeah, we do the school.
Later than that.
Is it later the
I
following
think
weekend?
it's quite late this year, the middle late.
I'm just making sure it's
I
not this
don't know,
week.
this won't tell me.
Right, so we'd have a town meeting then,
16th.
has to be upon approval of the Board of Finance. And another thing, fun fact of the day, we have to go to planning and zoning for this because we are borrowing money. When we normally build bridges out of usual tax money, we don't have to go to planning and zoning, but because we're borrowing, again, another check on our ability to spend money unwisely, is that we have to go to planning and zoning to jump through another hoop. Thanks to the bond council, we've learned that one. So, that's what I'll be doing next Tuesday night. So I make a motion that we go out to a town meeting April 7th and go to the town meeting with a referral of this package at their next meeting.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. So another missing piece is Roger, hopefully he's still awake over there. Roger has been working diligently. He and I met and we went over the fairly lengthy previous bid documents for Flat Rocks Road, and we've tried to amend them slightly to make them a little less intimidating and less lengthy. So Roger met with Cardinal Engineering, the engineering firm, and has a report for us on the abridged version of our bid documents, which will hopefully result in reducing some unnecessary things and reduce the price in that way, and also make it a little bit more vendor friendly by not having extra pages that we don't necessarily need to have in the document. So Roger, maybe give a report to the board on our new improved bids for Flat Rocks.
Okay, hard to convince engineers that all the work that they've done really isn't necessary. But we were pretty successful. They've agreed to remove a lot of the standard boilerplate that appears in most state projects. If it is necessary for the contractor to obtain the prevailing wage rates, they'll just make a reference to where it's available and let them get their own copy, rather than building an extra 10, 12 pages into the bid document. Same thing with traffic signing patterns. They've got traffic signing patterns in the bid package for interstate highways, for 4-lane roads, for 3-lane roads, for 2-lane roads, and we've got a single-lane road. So they've agreed to reduce a great deal of the volume. At least 3 sheets in the plans will be removed, and probably about 20 sheets in the bid document itself can be removed. One of the things we did discuss is that it will relieve a lot of pressure on the contractors as far as obtaining the precast concrete unit itself. The town is going to purchase that as an individual purchase. We can get it at a much better price. The bid prices were typically over $200,000 for a contractor to bid the item. We can purchase the item, and the bid item will now be to install the town's concrete parts. So we went through all that, and that went pretty well. They asked me to give you this. This is a bridge preservation guide, which is being put out by the FHWA, the Federal Highway Authority. And it's a nice thing to look through. It's a little bit of glitz and glamour, but it's really what we're talking about. It's coming up with a, rather than just a bridge repair program, bridge maintenance programs, much preferred. And it also helps to interpret the state inspects bridges and gives us a bridge inspection report once every 2 years on any structure that's more than 20 foot, regardless whether it's state-owned or town-owned. And it helps interpret those reports. So that will be coming out to towns from the DOT, but it's something that was produced by the FHWA. Also, they talked about, they are one of the 2 contractors, or contracted engineering firms that will be available through the local council of governments. So that took care of much of the discussion there. It was, I'd say, very productive. I told them we wanted to advertise for this project the middle of March, have the a pre-bid meeting the 3rd week of March, have the bid openings the 3rd of April. And
Have you sent anything out yet?
What's that?
Has anything been sent out yet?
No.
He's waiting for a blessing.
What would happen there, all we would do is, I will work with Joyce in writing a invitation to bid. This is what we did last year. We've increased that invitation to about 3 more contractors that have expressed interest. And then we also publish it in the local newspaper. Once it's published in the newspaper, there are many service agencies that review all of these legal notices and notify contractors, suppliers, whatever, of things that they might be interested in. It's a service that the contractors hire. So more contractors will know about it than just the 12 or 13 that will send an invitation to bid out. But the bid packages will be here on or about the 15th of March. I will work with Cardinal on getting them ready. Joyce and I will work together putting a letter out. And then we'll see what happens the third week. Usually a week after the notice goes out, you schedule a pre-bid meeting so the contractors can come in and ask questions. You know, what did you mean by this, and so forth. So I'll make myself available here at the town hall to meet with contractors. Again, we did this last year. Then you give them about one more week to take the information they've got to go back, then submit their official bid. The bid opening will be April 3rd.
So last year we sent out, or we contacted 12 contractors,
About 10, I think we sent.
and we ended up with 3 bids, I believe? Two.
Timing was very poor. The
Right.
bid was in June last year.
We sent it out in June,
Got it back in July.
got it back in July, right. So this time we're sending it out in March and want it back in April, more timely.
So you're gonna send it out next Wednesday. Well, you're meeting with Cardinal next Wednesday,
No.
15th.
No. I've met with Cardinal.
Okay.
I don't expect to meet with them again.
So what's happening on the 15th next week?
Well, I make a motion that we go out, we rebid the Flat Rocks Road Bridge on the 15th of March with the expectation that the bids will come back on the 3rd of April.
So that's what gives you that third week to meet for the questions. Okay.
Well, that will be built into the letter when the pre-bid meeting
Right,
is. So
okay.
I'll just work out, if it goes out on or about the 15th, and there's nothing, I mean, as long as it's somewhere near there, then we'll make a week after that, there'll be a pre-bid meeting. Then it'll be, looks like probably about 10 days after that the bids will be submitted and opened.
The 3rd is a Monday,
Yeah.
yes? Is that typical when you get the bids back Monday morning, or
Typically it'll be 10 o'clock Monday morning.
Is there a second?
Oh, I'm
That's right, what
finishing
was-
it.
What was the
So
motion?
the motion was to rebid the Flat Rocks Road Bridge on
15th of March,
about the 15th of March,
with expectations the bid will come back 3rd of April.
right? With the understanding that that funding for this project is subject to a town meeting approval, and that the town can reject any or all bids. Hopefully not. But those are the conditions under which we bid all our work.
And that will be on April 7th.
Right, so at least then we may not have awarded the bid, but we'll have some idea of whether our numbers are good.
I'll second the motion. Yeah, we don't have to, we don't award the bid when we see it at the
No,
opening.
we usually make a statement that there's an apparent low bidder, and we do not award the contract till we feel it.
And even if the next day is our selectmen's meeting, I'm not sure we'd award the bid then either until
Probably not.
the
Shake it,
town meeting is approved,
shake it for a while. Yeah, no, we can't until we get the money.
right?
Right.
We want the money in place.
Careful.
But I think if we have it then, at least that lets the apparent low bidder know they are.
Is the town beholden to accept the lowest bidder or not
No,
necessarily?
we can determine which bid is in the town's best interest.
That's stated right in the contract.
That we can accept or reject any or all bid.
Right.
And we accept, we choose the bid that is to the greatest advantage to the town.
Do we want to put a time frame on the,
I believe it's 60 days.
Bids are good for 60 days.
I think the bids are good for 90 days, but we will make a determination within 60 days.
okay, but also when do we want the construction to start and be completed?
That's an interesting point. I'm glad you brought that up.
It is.
Because we have to now order the precast concrete ourselves. It's going to take 5 to 6 months to have that fabricated. We had the experience with CSI and know that some fabricators say, oh yeah, we can do that, and just let you hang in the wind. So I've talked to Contech, as the company used to be Conspan, and they say it'll take them 5 to 6 months to do the necessary preliminary engineering and fabrication. So we probably will not be in the construction mode till August or September.
When we order that from them, can we request some sort of performance bond or something if September turns into November? Can we need to think about that or something? How do we?
Well, we can certainly think about that. I'm sure that they gave us a price without that provision. If you add that provision, and I'm sure they want to increase the price. So it's something to think about.
Good, plenty to think about. So, any more discussion on this motion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, Roger. Anything else on the bridges?
On bridges in general, yes. I'd like to report that Valley Road is completed, that has been seeded and mulched. I've informed Karen Nelson, ran into Will Calhoun, and he said it looked nice. Of course, now just mulch, but it's, that completes all of their contractual obligation. There is a slight matter of an extra work claim that we have to address eventually.
An extra work what?
Claim,
Claim?
yes.
Thought we already
Okay.
addressed that.
We did, but it's still there.
We
So.
said there wasn't money in the budget for it.
Right. But,
It was addressed.
right. But
We
we,
sent them a thank you note.
well, we do have some money. I think we left it, in my mind, we left it somewhat open-ended because there was no money at that particular time. We should get some money back from our insurance claim on the Music Mountain Bridge. And I think that claim can be re-examined at that point when we finally, if we do get money back in the bridge account. Was the way I left it.
I
Any
think
thoughts,
that their,
Richard?
I think that their claims for additional funding of the tune of $15,000 or $20,000, I can't remember what some are in there. Some of their reasons are valid and they should be addressed. I think one of the ones is that they anticipated construction as we did, that it was going to be in August or September or October, but it ended up after Thanksgiving. So I think that did impact the significantly later than we anticipated and they anticipated. I think that's a valid, I don't know if this is the time to be discussing it or not, but.
Well, if you want, at some point, I'll be happy to go over it specifically. I've got notes and.
But that's certainly one of the reasons that I think is a legitimate argument on their part. And I think we should look at some of the other issues that they're asking for and see whether that was in the original contract or not. I'm not sure. I remember there was a few things that came to mind for me. And
Yeah, pushing because the concrete contractor delayed the thing. Their bid was at a certain time, and if it had happened at a certain time, they wouldn't have had the water problems on the site as it turned out. So that did impact their, their workspace. But whatever, I said, until we get money in the account, it's
yeah.
a little
Well, I
unsafe.
Up
think
for review at a
A future time.
future time when we know how much money there is and what they're actually requesting.
Right. Okay. Anything else on bridges? Thank you very much, Roger.
Thank you.
Comment on bridge? Will you be seeking out that company again that did Valley Road?
Yes.
Will you target them as a bidder?
We won't target them, but
They'll
we're
be-
certainly welcome to work anytime in town.
They'll be
They were-
invited.
They were awesome.
They are.
They really were awesome.
They're on the top of the list of people we will be sending things out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, next is we have April road resurfacing. Jim has gotten a proposal from Seymour Sealing. Approximately $83,000 to do 1, 2, 3, 4, about a dozen roads in Cornwall Bridge, chip sealed, using MC 3000. And he recommends that we do this spring so we can use the heavier oil to seal the roads. So I would make a motion that we accept Seymour Sealing's proposal to do that work as recommended by the foreman.
I'll second that. I think that's kind of exciting that the oil prices haven't gone up.
Right. Okay, any discussion on that?
Yeah, so that contractor also gave us a price on sweeping the roads, sand.
Yes.
Are we gonna go with that? Is that more
Haven't got-
economical for us than renting
The cog
the
machine?
cog one?
I haven't had a chance to review all of these, that part of the
Okay.
numbers with Jim yet, so we'll bring that up at a different time. And I just wanted to get a go-ahead to get the oil down, and then we can see how the thing is. I'm not sure whether we can get, the problem with the cog machine is it's oversubscribed, so it's
Right.
hard to get it
It gets
at a
it when-
certain week. We can probably get it for 2 weeks, but getting it at a certain week, and Jim was, I think we used this service or something like it last time. You were satisfied with that?
There's two issues, cleaning the roads for the oiling.
Right.
That's certainly very timely, that has to be done
Yeah.
prior to them oiling the roads. And so maybe for that purpose, we use them,
Yeah.
And the
But-
rest of the roads.
and then maybe for the rest of the roads can be decided at a later
Right.
date, but we need somebody to clean the roads so the roads can be oiled.
Ready to go.
So somebody cleaned Flat Rocks Road like a week and a half ago.
Clean.
Warren,
Warren.
they swept all the sand.
Yeah, Warren is the keeper of the sweeper, so they get,
What were they thinking? Cause now it was all glazed ice this morning, so it's all sanded again. They're gonna have to redo it.
I guess they wanted some sand. I don't know.
I couldn't even get up the hill. I thought I had a flat tire. I got out, I'm like, what's going on? And I slid down the hill. I'm like, oh my God, it's black ice. And then when I came home, it was all sanded again.
This was on the Warren section road or Cornwall?
No, both sections, the whole
Uh-huh.
thing. I'm like, what?
Well, they didn't sweep the dirt road.
I hope not.
Anyway, can't explain it all.
I was like, I'm sure
I
he
know
didn't
we put the
sweep it.
sand down. We didn't sweep, they swept, we put the sand down, but I guess they like our
wouldn't
sand.
Sweep it, I wouldn't think. That would
Are
just
they
be
taking
silly.
our
We're
sand?
talking
They're
about
taking our
it.
sand and putting it back on the road.
No, they just dumped it on the side, so now we could go back and spread it out, I guess. Okay.
Okay,
That's kind of silly.
so, we all set with that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is West Cornwall Covered Bridge update. We talked to one of the several engineers on the job. Heard, good news is that they got some relief from DEP on the fish, so they think they can do it in August of 2018, as opposed to October of 2018, which is a better month. They're also, I've been working with them on the idea of a sprinkler system, dry sprinkler system in the bridge through our fire consultant. We got some links into the highway department in state of New Hampshire, so they are talking with DOT New Hampshire on a sprinkler system and how much that would cost, how that would work. Our fire department is in favor of that.
If the bridge itself comes.
Correct. Seems to be a bit of a problem in other places.
This is in essence a
A
dry
dry
pipe
system
just
they hook up to.
with a
yeah.
truck and just blow water through.
Right.
Pull
So
the
one
water.
person
Pull the water from the river or from the truck?
from the truck
Oh, okay.
start, and then you can hook up to the hydrant, but basically that. And they also talk about an early detection system, some sort of monitoring. So basically one person with that system could fight the fire with one truck. So at least until some other people got there, because the key is obviously quick speed. So that's the word from the covered bridge. Cornwall Bridge crosswalk. I circulated a proposal from the engineer who did the work at the crosswalk. This is Mr. Keith, who did the crosswalk in at Mountainside in North Canaan on Route 7. So for $6,500, he would design that. It would take several months. So I have to get back to my friends at Office of Policy and Management, see if that project is still fundable, whether they would continue the engineering, whether they pay for the engineering, and, or whether we'd have to pay for the engineering, they would just pay for the installation of the crosswalk, which apparently they had some estimates of about $12,000 to put in the blinking light setup there.
So it's
Awesome.
12,000 plus 6,500?
Correct.
There was something about them not paying for,
I don't think they pay for engineering,
yeah.
for this, they just pay for capital
Yeah.
stuff. So we'd have to come up with $6,500 from somewhere.
Have we investigated any other companies and prices?
I did talk to another engineer who was doing a nearby crosswalk. He quoted a price substantially higher than this by a factor of 3. So, and they seem to be the ones that have been hired to do stuff. So, anyway, we won't take any action until I get a clarification, but at least I wanted to get you that information to consider. Let's see, next we have resignation of beach director. Tammy Decker has resigned after 8 years of dedicated service to the town. And I intend to post the position. I did talk to Jen Markow, the Park and Rec director, who would like to coordinate with the beach a little bit more, integrated into Park and Rec, but does not have any desire to be the director herself. So she's going to discuss it at the Park and Rec meeting next week, and I think we should put it in the paper, maybe look at a job description at our next meeting, update it, and take action to update the job description, then advertise for it. Next is testimony in Hartford Regionalized Health District. I spent a good deal of time today in Hartford testifying, or I didn't spend much time testifying, but waiting to testify in front of the Public Health Committee. There were other bills covering a variety of, quite a large variety of health issues in the state of Connecticut, which you can see on C-SPAN or CTN or whatever cable company that covers the legislature. Went in with 2 other first selectmen, and there were other selectmen there. And additionally, Mayor Carbone was there from Torrington, and no one was in favor of this proposal for the municipal side from throughout the state. And the Commissioner of Public Health did testify for his reasons of doing this, saying that health services were unequal across the state. And the sense I got from the legislators there was that they were sympathetic to towns and regions that already had well-functioning health districts and did not want the state's grand plans to interfere with already well-functioning districts at an increased cost. People were concerned about paying more and getting less. And they felt that if there were particular health problems, then they should be addressed separately from trying to reconfigure health districts throughout the state of Connecticut. So I'm fairly optimistic that that proposal may not pass. The impact of the original draft of that was for an $80,000 increase just for the town of Cornwall. So you can imagine what the increased cost of the city of Torrington would be. So I think it was worth the trip if we are successful. The health district director was there, and I think he appreciated our support of their effort to give us a good health district at a reasonable cost. Thursday, another issue that's coming up, I'm going back into Hartford on Thursday to testify against the governor's proposal to have the towns pay 1/3 of the teacher pension program. And there'll be quite a few other municipal officials there, as this has a significant impact on potential municipal budgets. The governor has proposed giving the towns more time to adopt their budgets in view of the uncertainty of the state's finances. I responded that the town of Cornwall is required by ordinance to adopt its budget on the third Friday of May, and that the state should put getting a reasonable budget together that does not penalize the towns together early, so we know what this is, so we don't go into the summer and have to put out supplemental tax bills and a bunch of other stuff, that if we let this go, we would then, it would cost us more just by delaying adopting the budget. So I am working with John Green and Barbara and looking at the overall financial impact to the town of some of the proposals that are out there, and we'll have a better idea in the coming months of which ones are the most likely to become reality.
Should we change that date in the future if we had to, that ordinance?
Well, it's a difficult,
I mean, not for this year.
well, the hard part is because you have May and then you have to get your bills out before that, and that takes quite a bit of time because you have to set the mill rate and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, I know it's even right now somewhat of a scramble for Gene to get them out in time for the July 1st due date. So I think that's a good time. It's just a question. I mean, it could go on into, the session could go on into August or September, which I think we also do have enough reserves to cover this, these problems, at least for 1 year, and then we can adjust somewhat next year. But certainly that's on people's
No.
minds at this point. We'd almost have to have another town meeting to amend the town meeting that establishes the dates.
Right, that's what I'm
It
saying.
seems like it's just
But
costing
there's
us.
not a lot of leeway there anyway to get the bills
Right.
out for July 1st.
Right, so I personally, we've been through this before, not to this extent, but just avoiding having people to pay two bills and then the extra expense, sending a second, I mean, it's thousands of dollars just to send
Right.
out the second bill, plus nobody likes getting a supplemental bill.
What happened, in 1990, I think it was 1990, Weicker, when Weicker was governor, the income tax was instituted, but the budget, the state budget was delayed for months. I mean, at least until August. The state did not, I just can't remember how that impacted the towns. I don't know if they were, it may not have impacted the towns and what they were spending. It may have been more of a revenue side for the state.
Right, I don't think at that time that the municipal aid was in jeopardy, or the state was considering sending the town a bill.
Right.
So I think it was
correct.
more, they had to balance their books in some way, and that's, there was reduction of the sales tax at the same time
Correct,
to
right,
offset
right.
that.
They
So
probably
it was
borrowed some
more
money and-
a revenue thing on behalf of the state.
That's the one I remember having the delayed state budget. I
Right.
think it was at least August before it was approved. And maybe it's occurred in the interim one time when the state budget was delayed quite a bit. But it never was an expenditure side issue.
Right.
Or it didn't impact the towns.
Okay, so that's the Hartford update. Next we have a tax refund. Do you have that, Joyce, or do I have that?
It's right there on the left on the very bottom.
On the very bottom. There it is. Office of Tax Collector. Okay. So let's see, there's a motion,
There's 4 of them.
there's 4 of them. First one's a big one. First one is a motion to refund $2,469.51 refunded taxpayers for duplicate payment of real estate tax. So, I'll make that motion, here's that. And then, not to be outdone, here's a triple payment of real estate tax. I'm glad people are so,
I can see a double, how does a triple happen?
well, I'm glad people are so enthusiastic about paying their taxes.
I can see you
Here's
pay
another-
plus your bank pays
Here's
it.
another duplicate. And here's a third, so we have 3 duplicates and 1 triplicate. So that's, appreciate
It's
our
exciting that there's so
enthusiasm of
many
our
people.
Cornwall taxpayers and efforts of the, this is not done by the tax collector.
Does the taxpayer have to realize it and ask for it, or does the tax collector realize it and refund it?
I think they have
No,
to
you have
request,
to ask for it.
you have to request it.
And it only goes back so many years.
Yeah.
Three, I think.
And so I'll make a motion, we grant these 4 tax returns.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, next we had a, let's see, additional agenda, COG update. Do you have any particular questions? We've mostly been doing legislative.
Yeah, I did,
Activity.
I read the minutes. So who updates Cornwall's page at ctvisit.com?
That's a good question. I'm not sure we actually have somebody that updates it. And I think some towns, not sure every town has a page, but it would be a good thing. I can mention it to Janet.
Yeah, we have one, I think I saw it.
But this-
it's like somebody needs to tell them like this new event is happening.
Right.
And they'll do it for us, it
Right.
sounds like,
It's
but
a
someone
state-
needs to tell them.
Yeah, so I'll make an effort to talk to the ECD about doing that, because this is the first time the state's had a thing. We've had regional
Yeah,
things, and it looked nice.
but if we're pushing the, you know,
Right.
tourism thing.
Update.
And then there was a survey of high school kids that the COG was looking to get input from. So I was just wondering if it was sent to the high school, because I know the high school has like an email blast list for
Okay.
all the students,
All right, I didn't.
to make sure they were part of that survey.
Okay, anything else?
And then we, along with the other members of the COG, joined the Product Stewardship Council.
Huh, I missed that one too.
You were there.
I was there, I wasn't paying great attention at that point.
So it has to do with like, you know, the paint recycling and the mattress recycling and all that stuff that we already do.
Right,
So I didn't know if there was other things that this would encompass
Right.
that we should be proactive about getting containers for.
okay, I'll look at the product.
And then in the town update, where you guys all go around the table, you had mentioned that you had spoken with some residents that were in support of a local sales tax.
Huh, that's not true.
So I didn't want to correct those minutes.
I want to correct those minutes.
So I was like, what? What? I have not heard anything about that.
I'm glad you read the minutes. Right, no, I haven't been promoting the local sales tax.
Okay. No, I said Gordon Ridgway has spoken with
Oh.
some residents who are in support of a local sales tax.
That's good.
Okay.
I think the concept is that part of the state sales tax, or in addition to the state sales tax, if it's 6.35, I mean, I think the concept, I'm not saying you agree to this or I agree to it.
Oh, I
They-
know what
they-
you got wrong. What the thought was, I know what the misunderstanding was, that as an alternate to this teacher pension, to the, teacher
100.
pension to the, going through the property tax, I've talked to people, that one of the alternatives being floated by the CCM is to put a slight increase in the sales tax to offset the state's pension liabilities.
It's
So
been
that-
a state sales tax.
The state
not
sales
a
tax.
local sales tax.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
I've talked
So
to
that's what
locals, I've talked to people locally who said they'd be in favor of an increase of the sales tax as
Sales
opposed
tax.
to a substantial increase in local property tax.
Okay, well,
So I will clarify
yeah,
that.
maybe misquoted you. The
It
Cornwall
was a good
sales
idea,
tax.
but that wasn't the idea.
Another way to run that would be to increase the sales tax, whatever, 1/10 of a point, and that, the money raised in whatever town you're in, that amount could stay in the town, would be town revenue.
They would keep that much much track of where the,
Well, they all know where every business is that pays sales tax, they know where they all are.
right,
Um,
right, but if I buy something off Amazon and I pay the extra 10%, would they know that it came from Cornwall,
I would agree where the product is shipped.
the shipping address?
And then if it's 06754, it's through the town of
And
Warren.
it's more, you always have to make sure you ship it. That was all, like 4 questions from me.
Okay, so now we're back to public comments. Any more public comments? Anybody still awake? Yes, Joanne?
In terms of recycling, there was an article in the Waterbury Republican about Morris recycling hard plastics, which we don't recycle yet. You might wanna look into that, like caps and things.
Like what? What's hard plastic? What do you mean?
Hard plastic, you know, where it says don't put caps and
Oh,
tops
yeah.
in. Well, they're now recycling hard plastic. Gordon, I'd like to know, you've been testifying a lot in Hartford, and I'd like you to ask to review bill number 6920, which is concerning the furtherance of regionalism. And it's very concerning to me because it's an extension of power and authority to the COGS. And I think some of the things the COGS do in terms of sharing equipment and things, you know, it's great. But this will force the towns to partner. It will give the COGS more authority over towns, and it will give them an ability to raise revenue from the towns. So I think it's something we should be very concerned about, because the COG has 21 towns in it, and our interest as a small town, I don't think is the same, as you said, of, you know, Torrington and Winston. And I would just ask you to review the bill and consider testifying against it.
Okay.
It's number 6920.
I'll take a look. I would say this, that somebody asked the mayor of Torrington and the first selectman of Goshen if they could think of a good thing about this health district bill, and they couldn't. But on our way out, I said, in my mind, the good thing of having, the only good thing about some bad legislation is it does make some towns work together. And I think the COG is very good at working together. And for that example, that bill would have given a lot of authority to the COGs, and the COGs, at least our COG, did not want it and wanted that authority of health districts kept the way it is. So, but I will look at this new bill.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other public comments? Yes, Jim?
I just read this latest transaction screen, which is again just a questionnaire more than anything. I noticed it's been retitled as limited environmental due diligence. And he's got a few paragraphs that are pretty alarming and damning. You know, he admitted to this, which he didn't in the first, that it was a past industrial site, that it was also a DOT, Connecticut DOT garage for several decades at least. I think you guys need to be really careful. I think you need to find a lawyer. I don't know who the town lawyer is, and I don't know if he has any environmental law history. But whether you buy this property or lease this property, even if you lease this property, you need to find out the town's liability for environmental concerns for public health. And if you buy the property, you have to understand and accept the liability for the remediation if DEP decides to make the town clean this up. I think regardless of whether you lease it, whether you buy it, if you don't get a complete phase 1 and a complete phase 2 on this, you're making a huge mistake and you're opening the town up for liability, whether you buy it or whether you lease it. Even in his report, he's saying that you need to be careful moving these soils and doing excavation work. And if you read it between the lines, he's anticipating pollution in this site. So let's try not to disturb it any more than we have to. And this guy isn't an LEP, he's just an environmental professional. He's not qualified to do a full phase 1, I don't think, and he's certainly not qualified to do a phase 2. But his understanding in this latest one, as opposed to the one that's dated December 2nd, is that, yeah, there are probably problems here, and you need to be careful, at the very least, doing excavation work. He doesn't address the public health concerns if you're gonna use this as public property. And he doesn't concern the town's liability as far as public health is concerned, or as far as the DEP making you remediate this property if you've taken ownership of it at a future date. Pretty scary stuff.
Okay, any other comments?
Thank you.
I have some written comments related to the municipal contribution to Gear Dial Ride, with some excerpts from the town plan of conservation and development, and how our family supports the additional $1,000 this year to go to Dial Ride. So that's for this
Okay.
table.
Thank you.
And this is for the press. There's two there.
Okay, any other public comments? All right, thank
I
you.
have written comments.
Oh, written
I don't
comments.
want to take up your time.
Okay, thank you. All right, last chance. Public comments?
Do you want these signatures?
Sure, let's have everything there. Okay, thank you. All right, bill payments,
So that's it, right?
that's it.
Okay.